I never thought I would end up sleeping in my car at 32 years old. But there I was, parked behind an abandoned Kmart on a Tuesday night, with a cracked phone screen and 3% battery left, watching the rain streak across my windshield like tears I could no longer cry. My name is Lauren, and 6 months ago I had a condo in Scottsdale, a job at a marketing firm, and a fiancé named Matt, who told me every single morning that I was the best thing that ever happened to him. Now I was eating gas station peanuts for dinner, and pretending the lump in my throat was just heartburn. It started with my father, or I guess it started with his death. He was a good man, my dad, a contractor who built half the houses in our neighborhood outside Phoenix. He worked with his hands his whole life and saved every penny so that me and my younger brother Derek wouldn't have to struggle the way he did. When he passed from a sudden heart attack in March, I felt like someone had ripped the floor out from under me. He was only 63. We weren't ready. I wasn't ready. The will was simple. The house in Glendale went to both of us jointly. A life insurance policy worth $400,000 was split 50-50. And there was a savings account he had been building for years, almost $300,000, that was supposed to be divided the same way. My dad was old school. He believed in fairness. He told me once over coffee that he loved Derek and me exactly the same, and that no child of his would ever feel like the other was favored. I believed him. I still believe him. But love doesn't stop greedy people from being greedy, and Derek had always been just a little bit hungrier than me. Derek is 2 years younger. He has our mother's charisma and our father's stubbornness, wrapped up in a smile that could sell sand in a desert. He was always the golden one, the high school quarterback who got C's but everyone loved, the guy who talked his way into jobs he wasn't qualified for and somehow kept them. I was the responsible one, the straight-A student who paid her own way through college, the daughter who called Dad every Sunday and came over to fix his cable box and mow his lawn when his knees got bad. I didn't mind the role. I loved my dad, and I loved Derek too, despite everything, because he was my brother and family meant something. After the funeral, Derek took charge of everything. He said he wanted to handle the paperwork because I was too emotional. I was emotional. I had just watched them lower my father into the ground, so I let him. He met with the lawyers, he filed the claims, he told me not to worry about a thing. And I didn't. For 2 months, I trusted him completely. That was my first mistake. The second mistake was Matt, my fiancé, the man I had been with for 4 years, who knew every scar on my heart and every secret I had ever whispered in the dark. He held me at the funeral while I sobbed into his chest. He made sure I ate when I forgot to. He told me that we would get through this together and that my dad would want me to be happy. I believed him too. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't come from strangers with evil faces. It comes from the people you would take a bullet for. It started small. Derek called me one afternoon in May and said there was a problem with the life insurance payout. He said there was a delay because of some paperwork error and that I needed to sign a form releasing the funds to an escrow account. He sent me a document. I signed it without reading it. It looked official. It had my father's name on it. I was still drowning in grief, and Derek knew exactly how to use that against me. A few weeks later, he told me the house needed repairs before we could sell it. He said the roof was leaking and the foundation had issues and that we needed to put in $20,000 each to get it market ready. I didn't have $20,000. I had just spent most of my savings on the funeral because Derek said he was tight on cash and I didn't want to fight about money at a time like that. So Matt offered to lend me the money. He said it was an investment in our future. He wrote a check to Derek from our joint account. Another mistake I would pay for later. June came and I still hadn't seen a penny of the inheritance. Every time I asked Derek, he had a new excuse. The insurance company was slow. The bank made an error. The lawyer went on vacation. He was always calm, always smiling, always telling me not to worry because I was his big sister and he would never let anything happen to me. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him because the alternative was too ugly to look at. Meanwhile, Matt started acting strange. He was working late more often. His phone was always face down on the table. He stopped asking about my day. When I tried to talk about my dad, he would change the subject or find a reason to leave the room. I told myself he was stressed about money. I told myself he was grieving in his own way. I told myself a lot of things that weren't true because the truth would have destroyed me. The first real crack happened in July. I was using Matt's laptop to check my email because mine had died, and I saw a message from Derek. The subject line said, "Property transfer documents." I shouldn't have opened it, but something cold and sharp was already forming in my gut, so I clicked. The email was a response to something Matt had sent Derek, and in that email, Derek said, and I will never forget these words, "I think we should wait until she signs the quitclaim. Then we can move forward with the sale. No sense complicating things with her emotional state right now." I read those words 3 times. Quitclaim, emotional state, her. They were talking about me. They were planning something without me. My hands started shaking so bad I almost dropped the laptop. I scrolled up to read Matt's original email. He had written to Derek that the condo was in his name alone now because I had co-signed on a refinance a few months ago. He said once the inheritance came through, I would put money into the house they were planning to buy together. Except there was no house. There was no we. There was just Matt and Derek and a conversation I was never supposed to see. I closed the laptop and sat on the edge of the bed for what felt like an hour. My mind was racing so fast I couldn't catch a single thought. Matt had been pushing me to co-sign on that refinance for weeks. He said it would lower our monthly payments and help us save for the wedding. I trusted him. Of course I trusted him. He was my future husband. Now the condo was in his name alone, and I had signed away my ownership without even understanding what I was doing. That night I confronted him. I waited until after dinner when we were sitting on the couch, and I asked him straight out what was going on with Derek. He didn't flinch. He looked me right in the eyes and told me I was being paranoid. He said Derek was handling things exactly the way Dad would have wanted. He said I was making up problems because I couldn't accept that my father was gone. It was so cruel and so manipulative that for a second I actually believed him. I apologized. I said I was sorry for being suspicious. I cried into his shoulder while he patted my back like I was a child who had fallen off a bike.
That was the moment I should have left, but I didn't. Because admitting Matt was a liar meant admitting that my entire future was a lie, and I wasn't ready to do that yet. August was worse. Derek stopped returning my calls. The lawyer he had hired stopped returning my calls. I drove to my father's house in Glendale to check on it and found a lockbox on the front door, a real estate lockbox. I called Derek freaking out and he finally answered. His voice was smooth as butter. He said, "Oh yeah, I listed the house last week. We got an offer for $450. I had no idea. I was just trying to surprise you with a check." A check? He said it like it was nothing, like selling our father's home wasn't something we should have discussed together. I asked him how much my share would be. He paused for just a second too long. Then he said, "Well, after realtor fees and repairs and some debts Dad had that I didn't know about, it should be around $40,000 each." $40,000? The house was worth $450,000. Even with fees and repairs, we should have cleared at least $375,000. I did the math in my head and my stomach turned inside out. I told Derek that didn't add up. He got quiet. Then he said something I will never forgive him for. He said, "Lauren, you were always bad with money. Maybe just trust me on this." Trust him. After everything. I hung up the phone and threw it across the room.
It hit the wall and shattered into pieces, just like every belief I had about my family. That's when I started digging. I went to the county recorder's office and pulled every document related to my father's estate. What I found made me physically ill. Derek had transferred ownership of the house to himself 2 weeks after the funeral. He had forged my signature on a quitclaim deed. The same word he had used in that email to Matt, quitclaim. He had made me give up my rights to the house without my knowledge or consent. Then he had taken out a mortgage on the property for $200,000. That money was gone, disappeared into accounts I couldn't trace. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the life insurance. The $400,000 that was supposed to be split between us. Derek had changed the beneficiary 6 months before my father died. He had convinced my dad to make him the sole beneficiary by telling him that I had asked for it, that I was struggling with debt and wanted my share to go to Derek so he could invest it for me. My father believed him. Of course he believed him. Derek was his son, and Derek had been feeding him lies for months while I was across town living my life and trusting that everything was fine. I confronted Derek at his apartment in Tempe. He opened the door in a brand new golf shirt with a glass of something expensive in his hand. The apartment was full of new furniture, a massive TV, art on the walls.
He looked comfortable in a way that made me want to scream. I showed him the documents. I told him I knew about the forged signature and the changed beneficiary and the mortgage he had taken out on our father's house. He didn't deny any of it. He just leaned against the doorframe and smiled, that golden boy smile, and said, "You were never going to get that money anyway, Lauren. You would have spent it on Matt and his stupid business ideas. I was protecting Dad's legacy." Protecting. He said protecting, like he had done me a favor, like stealing my inheritance was some kind of act of love. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to grab that glass out of his hand and smash it against his perfect white teeth. But I didn't. I just stood there with tears streaming down my face while my little brother stole my future in slow motion. I asked him about Matt, about the emails I had found. He laughed, actually laughed out loud like I had told a joke. He said Matt came to me, not the other way around. He said your fiancé wanted to know how much money you were getting because he wanted to use it for a down payment on a house in his name only. He said Matt thought you were too emotional to handle money and that he would be better at managing it. I told Derek he was lying, but even as I said it, I knew he wasn't. The email I had read on Matt's laptop was proof. They had been working together behind my back for months. My brother and my fiancé, two men I loved more than almost anyone in the world. And they had been picking my bones clean the whole time. I left Derek's apartment and drove straight to the house Matt and I shared. I was crying so hard I could barely see the road. When I got inside, Matt was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open. He looked up when I came in, and his face went pale. He knew that I knew. I didn't even have to say anything. He just closed his laptop and said, "Lauren, let me explain." I told him there was nothing to explain. I told him I had seen the emails. I told him I knew about Derek. I told him I knew he had been conspiring with my brother to steal my inheritance. And then I asked him the only question that mattered. Did you ever love me? Or was I just a paycheck? He didn't answer. That silence told me everything I needed to know. 4 years. 4 years of holidays and birthdays and late-night talks and I love yous. 4 years of planning a wedding and picking out baby names and imagining a future together. And it was all built on a lie. Or maybe it wasn't all a lie. Maybe some of it was real. But it didn't matter anymore. Because the foundation was poison. And you can't build a life on poison. I packed a bag that night. Clothes, toiletries, my father's watch that I had kept in a box under the bed. I didn't take anything else. I didn't want anything else. Matt stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching me with an expression I couldn't read. Regret, maybe? Or just annoyance that his plan had fallen apart. I walked past him without saying a word. I got in my car and I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay in that house for one more second. That was 3 months ago. 3 months of sleeping on friends' couches and in my car when the couches ran out. 3 months of trying to find a lawyer who would take my case without a retainer I couldn't afford. 3 months of watching my life collapse while Derek posted Instagram stories from Cabo and Matt started showing up in photos with a woman I had never seen before, a woman with long blonde hair and a smile that looked just like mine. The legal system moves slow when you have no money. I found a pro bono lawyer through a legal aid clinic. Her name is Sandra, and she is 65 years old with gray hair and glasses and a voice that could cut glass. She took one look at my documents and said Derek committed fraud in at least 4 different ways. She said we had a strong case. She also said it would take months, maybe years, to get anything back, and in the meantime, I needed to survive. So I got a job waiting tables at a diner off the highway, minimum wage plus tips. Not enough for an apartment in Phoenix, just enough for gas station food and a gym membership so I could shower. I slept in my car for 6 weeks, a 2016 Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door and a backseat full of clothes. I parked in different places every night: Walmart parking lots, hotel parking lots, the side of the road in residential neighborhoods where no one would call the cops. I learned which gas stations had the cleanest bathrooms and which fast food places would give you free water without making you buy something. I learned that sleeping in a car in August in Arizona means waking up drenched in sweat at 3 in the morning with your heart pounding and no idea where you are. I learned that shame is heavier than hunger and colder than the desert night. I didn't tell anyone the full story. Not at first. I told my friends that Matt and I broke up and that I was staying with a Stanwith member while I figured things out. I told my coworkers that I was between apartments. The lies came easy because the truth was too humiliating. My brother stole everything I had, and my fiancé helped him. How do you say that out loud without wanting to disappear? The lowest point was a Friday night in September. I had worked a double shift and made $63 in tips. I was parked behind that abandoned Kmart because I knew no one would bother me there. I had a peanut butter sandwich for dinner and a bottle of water that was warm from sitting in the car all day. My phone was dying and I couldn't afford a new charger. I sat there in the dark with the rain falling, and I thought about driving my car into the nearest wall. I thought about it a lot that night. I thought about how easy it would be to just stop, to not have to fight anymore. To not have to wake up tomorrow and pretend I was okay. But I didn't do it, because I remembered something my dad used to say. He said, when you're at the bottom, the only way left is up. It's a stupid cliche, the kind of thing people say to make you feel better when they don't know what else to say. But that night, in the rain, behind a dead store, it was the only thing keeping me alive. So I stayed alive. I ate my peanut butter sandwich, I charged my phone in the diner the next morning, and I kept going. Because what else was I supposed to do? A month later, Sandra called me with news. She had filed a lawsuit against Derek for fraud and conversion. She had also filed a separate claim against Matt for civil conspiracy. She said the evidence was overwhelming and that Derek's lawyer had already reached out to discuss a settlement. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Small and fragile, like a butterfly I was afraid to hold too tight. But hope. The settlement conference was scheduled for last week. I walked into that conference room in my only clean blazer and my secondhand shoes and saw Derek sitting across the table with a lawyer who cost more per hour than I made in a week. He looked tan and relaxed. He was wearing a watch that probably cost more than my car. He smiled at me when I walked in. That same smile he had used his whole life to get out of trouble. But this time, it didn't work on me. I didn't smile back. I just sat down next to Sandra and waited. The negotiations took 4 hours. Derek's lawyer tried to argue that I had voluntarily signed away my rights. Sandra produced the forged documents and a handwriting expert who confirmed my signature was fake. They tried to argue that the beneficiary change was my father's choice. Sandra produced emails from Derek to my father's insurance agent, instructing him to make the change and lying about my consent. Piece by piece, Sandra tore their case apart. And piece by piece, Derek's smile faded. In the end, they agreed to a settlement. Derek would pay me $350,000, the money from the house equity plus my half of the life insurance minus what he had already spent. He would also pay my legal fees. He signed the papers without looking at me. His hand was shaking. Good. But here's the thing about justice. It doesn't fix everything. It doesn't give you back the months you lost, or the trust that was stolen, or the belief that the people you love won't hurt you. I have money now, enough to get an apartment and a reliable car and a fresh start. But I still wake up in the middle of the night with my heart racing. I still flinch when someone stands too close behind me. I still have trouble believing that anyone who says they love me actually means it. Matt never faced any legal consequences. Sandra said the case against him was weaker because he hadn't directly handled any of the money. But he lost everything anyway. His friends found out what he did. His coworkers found out. His family found out. His mother called me to apologize. She said she didn't raise him that way and that she was ashamed of him. I told her I was ashamed of him too. The woman he cheated with left him when she realized he didn't have any money left. He tried to message me last month.
A long, rambling apology about how he was lost after his father died, and how Derek manipulated him, and how he never meant to hurt me. I deleted it without reading the whole thing. Some words don't deserve to be heard. Derek and I don't speak. I don't know if we ever will again. My mother begs me to forgive him because he's family and family forgives. But my father was family too. And Derek stole from his grave. Forgiveness doesn't come easy when someone takes everything from you, including your sense of safety in the world. Maybe someday I will find it in my heart to let go of the anger, but not today. Not while I still remember what it felt like to sleep in my car with a dead phone and a dead dream, and nothing left but a lumpy backseat and the sound of my own heartbeat. I live in a small apartment now in Mesa. It's not much. 1 bedroom with yellow walls, and a kitchen so small you can't open the oven and the fridge at the same time. But it's mine. I paid the first and last month's rent with a check from Derek's settlement, and I didn't feel one single drop of guilt about it. I have a new job too. Not marketing. I couldn't go back to that world where everyone knew Matt and everyone knew our story. I work at a bookstore now, a little independent place that smells like old paper and coffee. The owner is a woman named Carol, who is 72 and has purple hair and doesn't care about anyone's past. She hired me because I knew the difference between literary fiction and genre fiction, and because she showed up on time for the interview. I love that job. I love the quiet of it. I love that no one asks me questions I don't want to answer. I still think about revenge sometimes. Not the legal kind. The kind where I show up at Derek's door with a camera crew and tell the whole world what he did. The kind where I write a post that goes viral and ruins his reputation forever. The kind where I make him feel even 1/10 of the pain I felt sleeping in my car with nothing but shame for a blanket. But I don't do it. Because revenge is just another way of letting someone control your life. And I have spent too much of my life letting other people control me. The truth came out anyway, without me having to say a word. Derek's friends found out about the lawsuit. His girlfriend left him when she learned he had forged my signature. His business partners pulled out of a deal when they heard about the fraud. He lost more than money. He lost the thing that mattered most to him. His reputation. His golden boy image. The smile that always got him out of trouble. Without it, he's just a man who stole from his sister, and no one trusts a man like that. I don't know what comes next for me. I don't know if I will ever love someone again, or trust someone again, or believe that happy endings exist for people like me. But I do know that I am still here, still breathing, still showing up every day to my little apartment with the yellow walls and my little bookstore with the purple-haired owner. And that has to count for something. The other night, I was driving home from work, and I passed the abandoned Kmart where I used to sleep. The building is finally getting demolished. There's a chain-link fence around it now, and a sign announcing a new development coming soon. I pulled over for a minute and just looked at it. That ugly, broken-down building that held so many of my worst nights. And I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not at the building, not at Derek, not at Matt. I was just tired. Tired in a way that goes down to the bone, but also free in a way I had never been before. I don't have to pretend anymore. I don't have to smile through dinners with people who don't respect me. I don't have to apologize for being emotional or difficult or too much. I don't have to shrink myself down to make other people comfortable. My brother took my inheritance. My fiancé helped him. And I survived. That is not a happy story, but it is a true one. And I would rather have a hard truth than a pretty lie. Sometimes I talk to my dad. Not in a weird way. Just out loud when I'm alone in my apartment. I tell him about my day. I tell him about the books I'm selling and the customers who make me laugh and the way the desert looks at sunset from my tiny balcony. I tell him I miss him. I tell him I'm sorry I didn't see what Derek was doing.
I tell him I'm trying to be okay. I don't know if he can hear me, but it helps to say it out loud. It helps to pretend that somewhere out there he is proud of me for not giving up. The money from the settlement is sitting in a savings account. I haven't touched most of it. I don't want to spend it because spending it feels like admitting that Derek's betrayal was worth something. But Sandra convinced me to use some of it for therapy, so I go every Wednesday to a woman named Dr. Chen, who has a calm voice and a small plant on her desk, and who never looks surprised no matter what I tell her. She says I have complex trauma from the betrayal. She says it will take time to learn to trust again. She says I am not broken, just bent. I like that. Bent, but not broken. I don't know if I will ever have a viral cheating betrayal story like the ones people tell on YouTube. The ones where the wronged woman gets revenge and rides off into the sunset with a better man and a bigger bank account. That is not my life. My life is quieter and messier and full of days where I still don't know if I'm going to be okay. But maybe that is the real story.
Not the dramatic confession with perfect pacing and a satisfying ending, but the slow, painful process of waking up every morning and deciding to keep going, even when every part of you wants to give up. My brother took my inheritance. My fiancé helped him, and I slept in my car while they spent money that was never theirs. That is the truth. The ugly, humiliating, devastating truth. But here is another truth. I am still here. I am still fighting. And no matter what they took from me, they could not take that. They could not take my ability to wake up each morning and choose to live, to choose to hope, to choose to believe that there is something better on the other side of all this pain. I don't know what comes next, but I am not afraid anymore. And that might be the greatest revenge of all.